This is a Frank podcast.
This Warriors Life Podcast 2026, episode 31, and a very special bi-week episode brought to you by ComfortGlaze, this Warriors Life's newest partner, supporting our coverage of the Warriors lower grades, junior teams, and next-gen talent. ComfortGlaze are the retrofit double glazing experts. They're in Christchurch, Hamilton, and Auckland. Great bunch of guys, fantastic company. And for a free quote, head to comfortglaze.co.nz, select this Warriors Life in the How'd You Hear About Us section, and you'll get a nice wee discount. So how good's that? But first and foremost, their support of highlighting the Warriors' next-gen talent is why we've got this guest on. It's been a bit of a, I've been keen to get this guy on for quite some time. We've been listening to him commentate the lower grades, the highlights for so long. And a great rugby league man, Gerard Cronin, media industry veteran based in Sydney. Australian listeners will know him as the G-Man on SEN, and the rest of you will recognise his dulcet tones from the Warriors Anonymous podcast and the Warriors junior grades and New South Wales Cup highlights, which you can get on the Warriors Anonymous YouTube page. I'm sure every Warriors fan worth their salt has spent plenty of time watching all our up-and-comers with you voicing it over the top. But Gerard, thanks very much for joining us, mate.
Mate, thank you for having me on. It's quite an intro there. I was like, oh wow, who's this guy you're talking about?
No, it is fantastic to have you here, mate. And you started the Warriors Anonymous podcast in 2023, broadcasting the junior grades highlights from 2024 when the Warriors entered Harold Matson SG Ball teams in. But you're doing some commentary as a freelance for New South Wales Rugby League prior to that. I guess that all goes hand in hand. But I guess wind it back a little bit so we can find out a bit more about you. How you started out becoming a Warriors fanatic, and I guess your path through media and weaving that into your rugby league passion as well.
Yeah, cool, man. So initially I was, of the age to watch the 1989 grand final between the Tigers and the Raiders, coming in on the TV screens live from Australia. And it was like, wow, what is this? It was like, watching footy from another planet. Unfortunately, I picked the Tigers, as I generally, tend to pick the teams that don't do so well. The Tigers obviously lost, but from that point on, I was so hooked on watching the big league games, and that from there got really interested in watching the Kiwis and the local stuff as well. And so it was only kind of natural that by the time the Warriors entered the league in '95, I was ready to go and jumped in behind. And it's just been a real sort of roller coaster ever since, I guess, of highs and lows. Been watching the games and sort of mock commentating a lot of games ever since I was a kid. So that's kind of where the love of rugby league really started from. Started in the media probably about 20 years ago now as a creative writer. And I am still in that sort of role 20 years on, albeit now in a different company. I'm now over in Sydney working at SEN. And from having made the move to Sydney, I've been able to sort of branch out a bit more into, doing commentary stuff for the New South Wales Rugby League and then Bar TV. And getting involved with the guys at SEN as well, teaching the lads how to say, Māori and Pacifica names properly, which has been quite an eye-opener for a lot of them. So that's kind of it, man. Just over here in Sydney now, flying the flag. And people, often ask me, like, been here for a little while, been here 8 years now. Are you still, as hearty as, Warriors and New Zealand supporter as before? And the answer to that is I'm probably even more so. Because once you're outnumbered, once you're you're standing out here by yourself, you gotta go a little bit harder. So that's kind of where I've started from and now where I'm at, man.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I know the feeling from 6 years in Brisbane, wanting to represent a bit more when you're over there and outnumbered by those Aussies, and yeah, you're performing a great service. Pronouncing those Māori and Pacifica names properly. We might have to hire you as a tutor for Brad. He's getting better, but yeah, could use a bit of brushing up on some key. Yeah, you came through watching it in a very similar. I'm guessing we're about the same age. If we're watching '89 Grand Final, those early '90s, Aussie League on two with Jimi Hendrix playing on the theme song.
Oh, Lion Red Big League. Oh,
yeah, so good. I was similar. I spent most of my adolescent high school years imitating Graham Hughes and just absolutely loved the commentary thing. Just didn't have the voice for it to carry on, or the being able to string sentences together without stumbling over my tongue. So yes, concentrated more on the writing, and then stumbled into this podcast scene as well. But yeah, great to see Kiwis over there doing great things in the Aussie media, and particularly in rugby league media, mate. If you're from Wellington, I'm guessing you grew up on a steady diet of Wainuiomata Lions and Upper Hutt City Tigers, those sort of teams, and Kiwis running around in those sort of teams as well.
Absolutely, it was probably the I think the glory days of Wainuiomata, and how they were doing great things on the national scene, and guys like Johnny Lomax coming through the teams, and I remember young Tana Umanga as well back when he was doing the league thing. But yeah, it was cool to watch, and sort of even from that sort of stage, you kind of see guys playing, at the local park, and then a year or two later you catch them playing in the big time over in Aussie. For one of the teams over there, and it's like, wow, like that's it's quite an eye opener. So really cool to see how things have gone. It's probably spawned a lot of my interest in checking into the next gen of players, and seeing who's coming up through the ranks, and who could be next.
Yeah, we will get into that just shortly, but before we get into that, how would you sum up the NRL season so far? The elite Warriors and where they're at. We're coming off 3 losses in 4 games, albeit tight ones. Listen to the Warriors Anonymous pod this week, and yeah, you guys are very much on the same wavelength. Pretty frustrated with the loss on the weekend. Yeah, probably on the sort of glass half empty side. Hard to shake that off, despite some good signs and obvious frustration with the centres like we did. But yeah, where do you reckon we stack up as we sort of head into this run home?
I think overall, up to this point, the season has been a massive success. I think I needed a bit of perspective from other people to just kind of, level me out after that game against the Dolphins, where I was a bit dark on things, especially sort of conceding the lead late, really sort of ground the gears a little bit. But in terms of looking at the big picture, sitting, second on the table, albeit that it is a close run thing at the moment in the top 8 teams. But I think if you went into this year, saying that we would be at this point of the season, I think you'd be over the moon. So there's been some wonderful signs. There's been times where I've watched on this season and thought, man, this is like something else. This is a team that I haven't seen, wearing a Warriors jersey. They've gone out and just, really done a job on a lot of teams. And yeah, seeing that has been so cool, man. Like just seeing the improvement in a lot of guys who've come through. Even the younger guys have obviously progressed quite a lot as well. And, I just love seeing what Andrew Webster's done with a lot of these players who come in, maybe not so necessarily, highly heralded, or for whatever reason their career hasn't sort of gone the way they thought it might, but he's taken guys like Jackson Ford and Tanner Boyd, and just really probably up their value to the point where it's not great for the club's perspective, but the level of play that these guys have come to, and across the board, has been wonderful. The last few weeks it's been a bit lean. And I think, probably the the biggest frustration out of the Dolphins loss for me was just the fact that we hadn't really learnt, I guess, hadn't quite learnt how to just close it. We had a couple of close games leading up to that, and yeah, so that sort of put a little bit of a downer on things. But from having stepped back just a bit, having seen the lay of the land and the injury toll, which is quite underrated, really, for this team, and having just seen how things have gone across the whole space of the year, that's really improved my mood somewhat. So perspective on these things is often key to be able to step back and recognize where you're really at.
Yeah, I guess as we get closer to the finals, that it really is a week-to-week thing. And, a loss to the Tigers, we start feeling pretty edgy suddenly. If we can get that win, though, we're back on track and setting sail. But that top 2 finish would just be so good if we can achieve it. I really think there's a chance here for a grand final, more so because of the standard of the competition. Like it's Penrith away out in front, despite a couple of recent stumbles. Then it's it is us and the Dolphins and maybe the Roosters, who have been sort of unconvincing still. This is a fairly even, I don't want to say weak competition, but there just isn't those top tier teams that we're used to seeing that are just above us. We're sort of we are that very next tier after Penrith. So hopefully we can build on everything that's happened. It doesn't sort of unravel. The injuries don't take too much of a toll, and we will be picking your brain about outside backs because we're so desperate to know who's coming through and alleviating that area of weakness at the club. But still exciting times, and as you say, if you were given second going to our last bye in round 18, you would take it with both hands. So yeah, great stuff. I guess we'll start, Gerard, with the teams that have already wrapped up a long time ago now, but it's only a 9-week comp plus finals. Harold Matson SG Ball, our Harold Matthews Cup under 17s, back-to-back winners in their first 2 seasons. We couldn't believe our luck. An amazing achievement. Some fantastic young players coming through this year under Albert Vetter's coaching. 1 win, 15th on the ladder. And a few big losses too. After, I guess, having seen all 3 seasons so closely, how would you sum up our youngest Warriors' performance?
Yeah, I actually just going back through a lot of their games, this year, I actually feel like there was probably a few games that we let slip, and that the 1-7 record is actually a little bit deceptive. I know it's about taking the chances and icing the big moments in a game and that. But there was a number of games like against the Tigers off the top of my head and Bulldogs. There might have been 1 or 2 more as well where it was really like, man, we if we just sort of held the ball there or taken a chance there, I actually felt like we could have been a lot more lot higher up the table. So yeah, it was kind of just, I would probably put it down to missed opportunities. Probably learnings as well. Albert Vetter coming in as the head coach, I would say he probably learnt a lot as well in his first year, as the boys, sort of presented their cases for moving forward. But a number of guys also, shone through as well. Some good young talent in there. I'm thinking of guys like Kenny Luffy-Tuanai, what I call him, the human forklift. He just moved people around. It was great to see at such a young age, and I know that higher up in the club they're really high on him. So seeing guys like that come through, and just I guess start their journey, whether it be to continue on through the entire Warriors pathways or to move elsewhere, which we've seen a lot of that over the past couple of years as well. Seeing how they have started out, I'm kind of, I'm looking forward to seeing how Albert Vetter, leads them in his second year in charge.
Yeah, Kenny, another Canterbury product. There's a stack of them in the Warriors lower grades. There's only been a sprinkling through Warriors history, and to see so many boys from the schools and the clubs in Christchurch and Canterbury has been obviously exciting for us down here, but a lot of them making a big mark too. Kenny was Rookie of the Year, I believe, for Harold Matts last year, now Player of the Year for that team this year. Bishop Neal, obviously, we'll get to him in a second, and before that, Lennox Tuoloma, man of the match in a Harold Matts grand final, all from down here. So great to see. Moving on to the SG Ball team, just the 2 wins and 13th on the ladder. Probably a bit more competitive overall. What was your take on them? At the SG Ball team hasn't quite had the same success, I guess, coming into the season as Harold Matts had, but still making their mark over these 3 seasons back in the under-19s.
Yeah, that's right. And you certainly, I think, sort of even looking bigger picture on the SG Ball setup, the first SG Ball game I remember going to watch was Warriors Rabbitohs. And like that Warriors forward pack, I remember being impressed by the back rowers who played the entire 80 minutes. And it was, it was a good 28 degrees, in early February. And that back row included Eddie Yedemir Toiava, Kailas Fatialofa, and Leka Halasima.
Wow.
So that they've gone on to do all right, in the space of a few years from having gone SG Ball and now being to where they are. And likewise, another good Canterbury lad, Tanner Stowers-Smith, was also in that team. So seeing how quickly, that can progress. I caught up with Tanner Stowers-Smith after the Penrith loss and a few weeks back, and just seeing the real improvement in confidence in him. He's now a legit, first grade player. And in 2023, he was in, the SG Ball squad. So that sort of that progression is something special. Don't get me wrong; he's a special player as well in terms of the qualities that he offers. But yeah, to see that sort of, there's that opportunity, right? There's always that chance that you could be the next. So, having said that, it was probably, I would class it as a disappointing year for the SG Ball squad. I was kind of a little bit excited heading in because we had 2 Harold Matthews Cup title winners. So from that sort of flow of players coming up, obviously you lose a couple along the way, sure. But I kind of thought that with these boys coming in, I thought that, they could have a real good shake at things. And, a lot of the times across that season, it was a defensive problem, really. The defense was just getting absolutely cut to shreds. And there was a number of blowout games in that season. So it was a tough one. There were bright spots as well. Obviously, some of the young guys, I love seeing, again, that progression of, you got like, Luke Hansen, Joseph Ratcliffe, Connor Bowden, Amasio Tiatia, and Bishop Neal. They've moved up into the ranks. So seeing that, that movement and how they're actually going as well, like having made the step up, that's really heartening to see. But and I guess that's the overall, role of these Pathways teams. But it'd sure be nice to have a little bit of win a few games, I guess, along the way in the journey as well.
Probably doesn't sort of help them too much that, particularly Bishop Neal getting plucked out of SG Ball after the first couple of rounds into Flegg and then New South Wales Cup. As you mentioned, Joseph Ratcliffe and Amasio Tiatia have played New South Wales Cup as well as being Jersey Flegg regulars as well. So there's a fair bit of disruption, and it's obviously, about the bigger club picture rather than trying to win SG Ball Cup trophies. But yeah, as you say, plenty of talent coming through. As you're talking about the defensive issues, do you think it's from your experience, maybe just coming into those sort of grades and playing against Australian teams that probably have a bit of a, I guess, deeper understanding of, from when they're kids to of defensive structures and all that sort of thing? It's probably made, it's been made a fairly big deal of over the years that it is obviously easier coming through those, well, not easier, but you get a better grounding for the fundamentals.
Yeah, definitely. I think that definitely plays into it. I actually think that there's a couple of common threads actually across, I would say, all Warriors grades, that being junior and senior. We have similar sort of defensive issues particularly out wide, and that starts at Harold Matts and goes right through up to the NRL. So I think across the board we have had have had our issues in that sense, and I just wonder if there's maybe a little bit more of an emphasis with these Aussie kids and how they grow up playing the game, maybe playing a bit more for space, whereas maybe Kiwi kids perhaps go a little bit more for contact, and that sort of that kind of dynamic sort of collides, I guess, when our teams start to play it and mix it with the big boys. Another factor as well, in terms of just thinking of the SG Ball and Harold Matts teams, they have less of a preparation heading into their seasons than their opposition. So, the Sydney clubs, they'll have like 1-2 games, the Bunnies will play like Rabbitohs and Penrith, say. Whereas the Warriors boys don't get that opportunity. They sort of have to keep things with their local in-house talent, don't have the ability to travel over and take on these teams. So they sort of, get a bit of a baptism of fire in those first couple of weeks. And it is quite noticeable, and you're sort of ready for it, I guess, as they head in and they head and take on these, well-drilled sides that they know their combinations and they know what's required. So there is that steep learning curve. And even in, Harold Matts, when they had their first championship winning team, they took a few weeks to really, start to get up to speed with the competition. And so once they clicked it, and it went to another level, they went on a massive run. But that's probably another factor as well that sort of impacts, I guess, how the season goes for these boys.
How do you see how do you have noticed them adjusting, I guess, to the travel aspect? And they're the only team that really has to do it. Everyone else is in the same state, essentially. Suddenly being teenage boys and you're flying back and forth to Sydney every second week, playing pretty impressive conditions for the most part, starting in February. Have you sort of been able to chat to some of them about that adjustment?
Look, I think I think it starts off as a bit of a novelty and an excitement. So there is that sort of aspect of it. It's quite exciting. You get to go over and play maybe the Tigers at Leichhardt or something like that, and that's pretty cool. So I think there's a certain excitement that comes with it. Whether or not it sort of may sort of be a slight distraction, perhaps maybe. Because I have noticed as well that I know you mentioned the Sydney teams and the New South Wales teams, they don't tend to have to travel as much, but when they sort of travel over to New Zealand, I feel like that they manage to enjoy it quite a bit as well, maybe like a bonding thing, bringing themselves closer together. So yeah, I feel like the club overall has probably really worked at that aspect of it, because it's been an Achilles heel for really any Warriors team over the years. So however they've gone about that, whether it's down to the well-being department or however they've addressed it, they've made it so that these young fellas, they seem to be I think probably traveling better and performing better than say some of the Warriors senior teams in years gone by. So that's probably a big thing as well, that they just get used to it. They figure it out. It's like it's like catching the bus to work kind of thing, except you got to do a flight and maybe a bus trip and whatnot. But yeah, however they are going about that aspect of it, I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah, hopefully that filters through to the NRL level, and you're used to that from an early age. Moving on to our Jersey Flegg team, there's a few players I want to pick your brain about. 7-7 record, sitting in 8th spot. Some good wins, a few tough losses. Got off to a slow start against Canberra on the weekend and just about ran them down. But some very talented youngsters in there. I'm going to start at the back. We touched on Joseph Ratcliffe, but he's cemented himself at the back there and touted as a probably a future first grader. Is that how you sort of see him?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Outstanding year for young Joseph. Starting off even in the SG Bulls side, which was struggling, he was not not one of those boys that was struggling. He was going great guns, and frankly, there were games where we would have had more points put on us if not for him at the back, saving tries, cover tackles, even scoring some awesome tries as well. So he's gone on in leaps and bounds. I would say his progression individually, I would say he's probably been one of the most to move forward this season from where he started at the start of the year.
Awesome. And looking at our wingers in that side, 33 tries between them. Harry Tawafiafi Otoi and Brandon Norris. Heard you calling their tries plenty of times, but obviously there's a lot happening in between those highlights. How are those guys progressing?
Yeah, doing really well. Both Harry and Brandon they're good on the yardage carries. So they do the tough stuff first. And then they've just got such a wonderful finishing ability to go out and just take a chance. They are the kind of wingers that if you give them a half chance, say 5-10 meters out from the line, even if there's markers on them, they'll often just create tries. They'll do something. They'll beat a man. They'll shake someone or jump over the top or whatever. And yeah, seeing what they are doing is wonderful. They're almost getting tries for fun out there, these boys, and in different ways as well. Harry Tawafiafi Utoi is, he's got great balance. He knows exactly where his touchline is. He knows how to work the corners and do the dive in the corner so that defenders can't get him. Whereas Chuck Norris, as I call him, young Brandon Norris is man, he's a crazy talent. He can get tries from anywhere. He can run from deep in our own area. Likewise, he can go flying through the air, and often he just makes some impossible things look really easy, and it's like, wow, that's something special there.
Norris, is he from Queensland? Is that right? Has he been brought?
Yeah, he's a North Devils junior.
Yeah.
So yes, he's an Aussie lad. Be interesting to see how he progresses. There's been comments around like, hey, is he going to get a crack in New South Wales Cup? And I'm certainly want to be keen to see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I guess we have to wait and see what the coaches say.
Yeah, I might bring them up in a little bit. Just obviously that wing depth has become a bit of an issue. Bringing in Luke Lalili from Tigers recently instead of, I guess, potentially backing our New South Wales Cup wingers. But before we move on to the Cup team, the halves, Harry Inch and Jack Thompson, rugby union convert, and another Jack Thompson. He's an Aussie boy as well, isn't he?
Yes, he's from the Newcastle catchment originally.
Yeah, that's right. They're looking very classy. I mean, again, most of us are just seeing the highlights. We saw a bit more of both in the trials. They just look like classy playmakers and guys that go after the game.
Class is the word, man. They ooze it, both of these boys. Jack Thompson, he's still young. He still could be playing SG ball this year. So he's got a wonderful kicking game, a deadly cutout pass. I see it every week. I'm like, man, once he throws a cutout pass, the defense is in real trouble because we have a high percentage that when he throws them, we score off them. So great. I love his vision that he has. He'll spot stuff and he'll recognize something in a defense in a split second. And so whether that means he bangs, steps off his right and goes back up the middle and finds a runner, or sends it wide with a pass or a kick, he's a classy player, and it feels like he's got time on his hands, which is a rare quality. That's a special guy when you've got someone like that. In terms of Harry Inch, man, like you expect the guy to come in. Obviously, done great things in rugby union, yes, but I expected to see a learning curve from him. But honestly, from the very first game that I saw him in, it was like, this guy belongs here straight away. He walked straight in, and all of a sudden, he's a Warriors 5'8". You're like, wow, he has got something. Rock solid defender, puts in hits. He's had a number of games where he's gone in and actually, forced a key turnover. I guess he's probably, studied the Chanel Harris Tavita playbook on that. But he is a special one. He has thrown some freakish passes in recent times that you just watch them and go, wow. Like, you watch them. I've watched them over and over, obviously compiling the highlights. And every time I watch them back, I'm like, wow, like, that is a thing of beauty. So those two boys, I'm excited about them, how they move forward in the Warriors system that's going to be definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, very excited about both. You can, watching them go around together, albeit in under 21s, there's something about them that you could see them being a future combination in the NRL. Great balance to them as well, different styles of players. Thompson, watching his highlights, there's almost a Sam Walker-ish quality about him, about how he'd rather have a crack if he sees something than, play the system, or, doesn't mind giving the ball some air, really floats those passes out, which, you probably see less and less playmakers willing to do that these days. So it's quite refreshing. And yeah, good kicking game. And I've seen the same in Inch's highlights. When that catch and pass, it's just exquisite at times, isn't it? So yeah, exciting. Looking at the centres, obviously, it's particularly this week been a bone of contention for Warriors fans, and it's been a bugbear of mine for a decade, just not being able to, I guess, recruit or produce top quality centres. And I've felt like we've been happy to accept mediocrity in that position for far too long. Is there anyone coming through the ranks that you can see solving that anytime soon? I was impressed with Kalis Paul Patoko in the trials, and also in some low grade stuff that I've seen this year. Jai Linane has been a real surprise packet since coming back from injury in an unfamiliar centre spot. Really, looks a gun at centre in New South Wales Cup. Sio Carley probably hasn't kicked on as some might have thought after the debut in New South Wales Cup at 18 and looked the goods. But yeah, what's your take on our centre stocks going through the grades?
Yeah, it's a tricky one in terms of the progression. I think when you're looking at guys, say in Jersey Flegg, you got Moto Pasikala, who now has been put into the centre spot. And he's obviously had a bit of injury issue last year, which sort of hampered his progress. So, and then being shifted into the centres as well. I was wondering, what that meant if they sort of saw a future progression for him there. So he's probably one to keep an eye on as well. Probably first at cup level, where he has quite a bit of experience already. I think Siokali is. He did some great things on the wings last year, but his natural position is that left centre spot. And I'm just such a fan of his ability, I guess. I know that there's a lot more things to factor into, evaluating guys and working with guys and actually giving them the NRL debut. But I look at him and think, he can defend well. He can cut a defense open just out of absolutely nothing. He's one to keep tabs on. Also, how they've worked with Jeremiah Lemana this year, who was primarily a fullback, but having played a season in Harold Matts in the centres as well, and now this year having been put in New South Wales Cup, was wondering how that would work, like if they were looking at him as a longer term fullback, or if they actually see a real potential there, real opening for him to crack on and make that centre spot his. So there's talent. There's a plethora of talent coming through. Even I would actually put Brandon Norris in that category as well. I know that they've stationed him more on the wing this year, but saw a ton of him last year playing in the left centre spot. He was devastating. But there's plenty of guys coming through with varying amounts of X factor, and I would probably say more X factor, potentially than what we've got in our top grade. But I think those guys are probably the ones to just watch and see how they are, put through New South Wales Cup probably over the next couple of weeks or so. Obviously, we've got the bye this week, but how they kind of come through and who the coaches, may have their eye on as things move forward. That's going to be interesting because I know that it seems as though they've been, favouring a steady sort of, presence in the centre spot. Someone who just cart it up and make their tackles kind of thing, which is obviously what you want. But these guys, they've got something extra to offer. So I think that's what makes it quite tantalizing when you watch, the team struggling in certain aspects of the centre play. And then you check out some of the, the pathway stuff and you're like, oh, what about this guy, kind of thing. So it starts to become a little bit sort of, a bit of a tease in that sort of sense. But that's how I see it for now. Anyway, it's a matter of how they progress. Injuries and all sorts of other factors will play into it. But I guess we just have to wait and see.
I guess a game like Saturdays against the Dolphins is tough to watch because you can kind of accept the more pedestrian style of centre, a workhorse type if they're solid enough and you're not getting errors and defensive mishaps. Whereas on the weekend it all fell apart. Pompey, error prone, shocking defensive decision from Leotara again, not for the first time in recent weeks. And that's when you sort of start calling for changes. But whether we see that, and there's not quite that, we might be just sort of rushing someone in before they're ready, or I don't know if they might, with our glut of mobile back rowers, give Lecker another crack there. Eddie, I thought, looked really solid there and not inexperienced at centre. Has Fatialofa played a bit of centre and cup as well? I don't know if he'd be quite an option, but there's certainly options at Andrew Webster's disposal.
And he's probably one who's slow to make a change, but I feel as though once he does, actually put a guy in there, I think he'll stick with them. So I can understand his mentality. It's like, right, until we have someone that we are really, really certain on, we'll just keep sort of plugging away with what we have for now. And I guess on reflection across the season, Ali and Adam Pompey they've done a serviceable sort of job, and at times they've impressed in different ways, different stages as well. So I feel Webby's shown his hand in terms of how he is, how he's handled the fullback spot. He was sort of resistant to sort of change in terms of putting Tuopiki back there. But I feel like now that torch has been passed, that's how it will be now for the next few seasons. So possibly looking at the centre spot with that same kind of mentality, he's not going to pull the trigger, too early for his liking.
Yeah, good point. I'm just so tired of serviceable in that position. Serviceable and occasionally terrible when you look around the NRL and see the sort of strike weapons that other teams are enjoying. Conrad Hurrell's probably one of my top 5 favourite Warriors. And I know he had he's certainly an enigma, had defensive fitness issues, attitude issues, but man, when you've got that sort of strike and it gets going, it's just so valuable. And I thought Leotard was going to be, I hailed him as, our best since Torpy, and that's starting to unravel a bit, that prediction. But yeah, not writing him off yet, still young, but I kind of feel like it would be starting to happen rather than a regression.
It could still happen. You think of a guy like a couple of years back, you think of a guy like Jackson Ford, and he just sort of, he was a serviceable sort of player who just had some, errors in his game. And it was like, oh my gosh, like
100%.
It was sort of like if he could just iron those out, he could be, a really good player. And this year, he's done just that. And it's like, he's the guy who's made the leap. So, I kind of still think of Ali in that context. Like he could be a guy who could, make that step up in the system. I'm not sure exactly what his injury sort of issues are in terms of how he manages his, I think it's his ankle. But yeah, I still have hope for our man Ali.
Yeah, it'd be great to see him really kick on and just click in that spot. And yeah, he could be still a key guy for the rest of this campaign. We're running out of time a little bit, but this New South Wales Cup side, defending champs, obviously lost a core group of experience with Kalani going, Freddie Lussick, and others getting plucked out of the squad at the end of last year. 7-7 as well, and kind of on the fringe of making the finals. Certainly don't look like they're going to go back to back. But yeah, any particular standouts? I'm desperate to talk about Bishop Neal, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and what a freakish talent at only barely 18, and some of the things that he's doing. But yeah, if you could, I guess, talk to Bishop and his progress, and a couple of others that might be catching your eye in the cup team.
Yeah, I think with for me, watching Bishop coming through from Harold Matson now up into the seniors, you sort of, I don't know, you're almost wondering, is he gonna, go up a grade, go up a size level as well, say, and sort of start to meet his match. And even playing against seniors now in New South Wales Cup, he still hasn't really met his match. He's still an absolute gun, a weapon. And the fact that he was chosen for Queensland under-19s, that shows how highly thought of he is in their system. And just dripping with ability. Like he's a freak. Like you don't see second rowers with the sort of deft chip kicks that he offers, and he's got offloads, and then the ability to hit the gas. And you see him get into space, and fullbacks kind of look at him and they're thinking, can I even catch this guy? And then they're wondering, do I even want to catch this guy? And he runs off and scores, something, and you're like, wow, like that's just him, man. Like he's one of one, really. He's a big unit, but with some of the most light dancing feet that you've seen in rugby league. And yeah, he's something else, man. He would be a hell of a player when he turns 18, 19, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. He sort of looks like even a New South Wales Cup, like one of those giant kids that's just too good for everyone else, too fast, swatting people away. Like he still plays with that sort of spirit, and yeah, just too good for everyone. When he, I guess, stops growing, whenever that might be, and gets that proper grounding, like he started the season in under 19. So it's been a crazy progression, and can't wait to see what he can do. Just another cab off the rank in this amazing line of second rows that the Warriors are producing. I am keen, before we let you go, to ask, how come can you see why we have these big second rows quite often lurking out on the wings in the lower grades? Are they just having a rest and then suddenly they find themselves in a bit of space?
Well, initially you kind of think about it as a one-off, right? But as it starts to, happen again and again and again in different grades, like even you saw it last year with Lecker against the Tigers. I think that's a plan. I think they, in terms of how they structure their early carries, obviously you got your wingers and centers move into, truck it up. But I think if there is something on where they spot, short down the short side, I think that they gun for it. It also helps, obviously, you can't really do it with anyone. But when you have someone like like a Kalis Fatialofa in Cup, Bishop Neal and Jersey Flegg and now Cup, and a guy like Lecker as well. I mean, these are probably not normal second rowers who can, they'll sort of get outside, say a centre or a winger, and the defender will be kind of tracking across, thinking, yeah, got him. Have I got him? Maybe I haven't got him, and then he's gone. So yeah, I feel like it happens too much for it not to be part of the plan. Maybe it's just a recognition thing of the dummy half. They do a quick audit on the defense and see how many they got on the short side, and it's like, all right, if it unfolds that way, just give it out to one of these big boys to just burn it down the sideline.
Yeah, they certainly look like they know what they're doing. They don't look out of place on the touchline, that's for sure. One last question. We could have talked to you for another hour, unpicking all these up and comers, but If you had to put your money on the first Warriors father-son first grade duo, there's 4 in the ranks now: Jet Cleary, Hazen Mellors, Braylon Marsh, Riley Price now, the mid-season recruit. Who's gonna pass that milestone?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay. I would say probably Hazen Mellors might be the closest. Probably, I'm just thinking in terms of, obviously we've brought in Luke Laulilii for, wing cover. So if you take him out of the equation next year, obviously got Will Warbrick coming in as well. And depending on what happens with, Dallin in terms of he's getting on a bit, I feel like there's probably the best opportunity for him to, for Hazen Mellors to step up and get a debut first out of those boys. It will be interesting how we, go about things at the halfback spot next year. Tanner Boyd, he's aiming for a round 1 return, but those things, they can take a little while to sort out. So in that respect, Jet could have a look in as well. But I've honestly loved his progression the last 2 years. Jet Cleary, he's come on in leaps and bounds, and it's a crucial spot that he's playing as well. But if I was to put any money down, bro, I would go for Hazen, and I think he might be the first to get in there.
Yeah, nice. I'm loving Jet. It seems a real competitor that is, not too burdened by the Cleary name or looking very much like Nathan. Obviously, some of the same attributes, but turned into a real gritty little player that seems to, take responsibility for this New South Wales Cup team, and one that probably should be playing first grade. It is, as you mentioned, like Tamati has come not from nowhere, but I'm surprised by how well he's played at halfback. So suddenly we do have that option there. Tanner Boyd, sensational before breaking down. So that path is kind of blocked to a certain extent. Difficult to manage it. And then you do have those other guys coming through, Harry Inch and Jack Thompson, who will be knocking on the door before too long. So fascinating, but good position for the club to be in. And want to thank you, mate, for coming in and giving us a broader picture of how the club is shaping up through the grades and in certain key positions. I'm sure we'll be dragging you back on again if you'll join us. But again, thanks very much, and a big thank you for keeping us all abreast of all these teams and how they're travelling with your coverage and commentary. It's it's a real lifeline for us hard out Warriors supporters, and I'm sure thousands are appreciating the work that you do.
Oh, mate, thanks so much for getting me on. Grateful to come and chat to you, and thank you for the support as well. It's massive. So we'll see what happens for the rest of the year. There's a bit to go.
Yeah, brilliant. Look forward to your calls for the rest of the season, mate. And thanks to you. Head to Warriors Anonymous on YouTube and all the other podcast haunts to catch all their stuff and the lower grade highlights. Thanks to ComfortGlaze for their support and for giving us the opportunity to bring you more of this next gen coverage and lower grades. Head to comfortglaze.co.nz. Until next time, though, we'll see you Team List Tuesday at 5:30 New Zealand time. And until then, look after yourselves and each other.